What if the most powerful move you could make right now is to vanish? Predictability is how you get beaten. When people can track your patterns, your next move is already dead. Every high-stakes player in history, the ones who actually won, operated from silence, not visibility. Disappearing isn't weakness, it's the strategic void your enemies cannot navigate. You stop being readable. You become the variable no one can calculate. In the next few minutes, I'll give you 10 exact patterns to erase, starting now. Section 1. Stop announcing your moves. You are leaking intelligence every single day and you don't even know it. Every time you post about a goal before it's done, you've handed information to people who will use it against you. Every time you talk about what you're planning, what you're building, who you're talking to, you have given your competition a roadmap. The loudest people in the room are almost never the most dangerous. Noise is a compensation strategy. People announce things when they need external validation to keep going. That is a dependency. And dependencies are liabilities. Here's the pattern that actually works. You execute in silence, and you let results speak when the time is right, not a moment before. Think about how a predator operates. It doesn't announce the hunt, it positions. It waits. It moves only when the timing guarantees the outcome. That is not patience from weakness. That is patience from calculated precision. Thomas Shelby never walked into a room telling people what he was about to do. He walked in having already done it. By the time his enemies understood what happened, the game was over. That is not a dramatic television trope. That is the actual mechanics of how power operates in real life. You need to stop announcing your moves because every announcement gives someone else time to counter position. When you're silent, they are operating blind. They cannot prepare for something they do not see coming. This applies in business. It applies in negotiations. It applies in personal strategy. If your competitor knows your product launch date, they can time their own. If your opponent in a negotiation knows your deadline, they will stall until you're desperate. If your social circle knows your plans, some of them will consciously or unconsciously undermine your confidence before you even start. The rule is simple. Close the loop before you open your mouth. Finish before you announce. Ship before you celebrate. Win before you tell anyone the game was even happening. Silence before victory is strategy. Noise before victory is strategy. Noise before victory is sabotage. Self-inflicted. Section 2. Erase your patterns. Patterns are the enemy of power. If someone can predict what you will do next, they don't need to be smarter than you. They just need to be slightly ahead of your next move. Predictability makes intelligence irrelevant. You can be the smartest person in the room and still lose if you are consistent in ways that others can map. Every habit you repeat in public becomes a vulnerability. Your schedule, your responses, your reactions, your preferred strategies. If these are observable and consistent, they are exploitable. Most people never think about this. They operate on autopilot. Same routines, same reactions, same patterns week after week. They think consistency is discipline. Sometimes it is, but publicly visible consistency in competitive environments is a trap. You need to introduce deliberate unpredictability into your behavior, not chaos. Chaos is just as readable as rigid patterns. Deliberate unpredictability means your actions remain logical to you, but are not predictable to anyone watching from the outside. Change your entry points. Change your timing. Change your communication channels. Change who you respond to and when. Change the way you structure your deals and decisions. Not randomly, but purposefully. You know the logic. They don't. The strongest players understand that being unreadable is a structural advantage. When no one can anticipate your next move, they are always in reactive mode. You are always setting the tempo. You are always forcing them to respond to you rather than preparing for you. Thomas Shelby survived in an environment where every other player was trying to map his next move. He survived because they couldn't. He would do something expected just long enough to build the assumption, and then he would shatter that assumption at exactly the moment it would cause maximum disruption to his opponents. That's not accident. That's deliberate pattern engineering. You need to start thinking about your own behavior the way a strategist thinks about an opponent's behavior. Where are your patterns visible? Where are you operating on autopilot? Where are you handing predictability to people who want to outmaneuver you? Map your own patterns before someone else does, then systematically disrupt them. Not all at once, that's obvious. Gradually, strategically, until the people watching you are permanently confused about what comes next. Confusion is control. You want them confused. You want them guessing. You want them guessing. You want them reacting. The moment they're reacting to you, you have already won the tempo battle. Section 3. Cut information flow. You're giving away too much, and most of it you're giving away for free. Information is currency. Every piece of it that leaves you without a return is a bad trade. And most people make this trade constantly. In casual conversations, in social media updates, in the small talk that feels harmless but isn't. When someone asks how things are going, they are not always asking because they care. Sometimes they are asking because knowing your status tells them something useful about your trajectory, your vulnerabilities, your plans. This does not mean you become paranoid. It means you become deliberate. There is a significant difference between strategic discretion and social dysfunction. You can be warm, personable, engaging, and still reveal nothing of operational value. The people who understand this don't talk about what they're working on. They don't drop hints about upcoming decisions. They don't overshare in moments of excitement. They have trained themselves to treat information as a resource with real value, not as social currency to spend carelessly. Here is a practical filter. Before you share any piece of information about your plans, deals, strategies, or movements, ask yourself what the person on the receiving end can do with it. If the answer is anything that could disadvantage you, you keep it. This isn't dishonesty. You don't lie. You simply don't volunteer. You answer questions with questions. You redirect conversations away from your operational details. You give enough to maintain a normal social presence and nothing more. The people who practice this at the highest level don't look secretive. That's the sophistication of it. They are engaged, present, even generous with certain types of information, the kind that doesn't matter. But anything that touches their actual strategy, their actual position, their actual next move, that stays locked. Control what leaves you. Control what gets known. Control the narrative about your position in any given moment. Information asymmetry is one of the most powerful advantages that exists in any competitive context. When you know more about them than they know about you, you are structurally ahead. When you know everything and they know nothing, the outcome is almost certain before the engagement even begins. Stop leaking. Lock it down. Be the room that nothing gets out of. Section 4. Disappear before you reappear. There is a calculated power in withdrawal that most people never access because they are too afraid of what absence might mean. They think if they go quiet, people will forget them. They think if they step back, they'll lose ground. They think visibility is the same thing as relevance. The strategic withdrawal is one of the most effective tools in the arsenal of anyone who wants to re-enter a situation with more leverage than they left with. When you disappear, you create scarcity, and scarcity creates value. Think about how markets work. When supply drops, perceived value rises. The same principle operates in human dynamics. When you are always available, always visible, always present, you become ambient. People stop noticing you because you are background noise. But when you withdraw, when you go quiet, when your presence becomes rare, people start to pay attention to where you've gone, what you're doing, what you might be planning. The absence communicates something. Done correctly, it communicates strength, not defeat. It says, I don't need this room. I don't need this conversation. I don't need your attention to feel secure. That is a signal that changes how people orient themselves towards you when you return. The return matters as much as the withdrawal. You don't disappear indefinitely. You disappear with intention, and you reappear with something. A completed deal, a new position, a finished project, a changed situation. You come back having executed, not having wandered. Thomas Shelby understood this mechanics intuitively. He would remove himself from the field, let the noise die down, let his opponents relax into the assumption that the pressure was off, and then he would reappear, fully positioned with the outcome already secured. They never saw it coming because they stopped watching while he was gone. This is the pattern. Withdraw when the situation requires recalibration. Use the silence to execute without scrutiny. Return only when you have something concrete to re-enter with. The cycle of strategic disappearance and calculated return is not something most people practice. That is exactly why it works. Everyone else is fighting for visibility. You are using invisibility as a weapon. That asymmetry is worth more than any amount of surface level positioning. Go dark on purpose. Come back on purpose. Never let either moment be accidental. Section 5. Kill your need for validation. This one will cost you nothing but your ego. And your ego might be the most expensive thing you own. The need for external validation is one of the most common reasons people become visible before they should be. They share work in progress because they want encouragement. They announce plans because they want support. They post about goals because the likes feel like permission to keep going. This is a structural weakness. If your momentum depends on other people's approval, then your momentum can be killed by other people's disapproval. That dependency is a kill switch that exists outside your control. High-level operators do not need the room to approve of the next move before they make it. They have already decided. They have already calculated. They move and they let the result validate the decision, not the crowd's reaction to the plan. You need to rebuild your internal feedback loop so that it runs on evidence, not approval. Did it work? That's the metric. Not, did people think it was a good idea? Not, did anyone compliment the plan? Did it produce the outcome? That is the only question that matters at the operational level. When you stop needing validation, your decision speed accelerates. There's no waiting for consensus, no seeking of reassurance, no stalling while you gather opinions. You assess, you decide, you move. The cycle gets tighter and tighter because you've removed the external dependency that was slowing it down. You also become significantly harder to manipulate. If someone can't control your behavior by withholding or offering approval, they've lost their most common lever. People who operate without needing external validation are genuinely difficult to manage, to stall, or to redirect through social pressure. Build the internal system. Trust your own read of the situation. Make the move. Let the outcome speak. Validation from the outside is noise. The only signal worth tracking is the signal from the results. Everything else is a distraction from execution. Section 6. Control reaction. Control the room. Your reaction is information. Every time you react visibly, you hand someone a data point about what affects you. Most people cannot control their reactions. They respond immediately to provocation, to surprise, to discomfort. Their face moves before their mind engages. Their words come out before they've calculated the cost. And every one of those unguarded moments is a window for someone else to look through and understand exactly how to handle them. The person who controls their reaction controls the room's perception of their position. When you don't react to a provocation, you deny the provocateur the feedback they need. They don't know if their move landed. They don't know if you're threatened, surprised, or completely indifferent. That uncertainty is power transferred directly from them to you. This is not emotional suppression. That's a different thing with different costs. This is response delay. It is the practice of creating a gap between stimulus and output. In that gap, you process, you calculate, you decide what response, if any, actually serves your position, and then you respond from strategy, not from emotion. Thomas Shelby would walk into a room that wanted him rattled and give them absolutely nothing to read. No tell, no visible discomfort. A stillness that communicated one thing clearly: I am not affected. And that stillness alone reorganized the power dynamics in the room before a single word was spoken. You need to develop this. Not the performance of calm, but actual functional calm built on preparation and self-knowledge. Know your triggers. Know what gets under your skin, and systematically remove those things' power over your visible behavior. When you stop being readable through your reactions, you stop being manageable. People can't adjust their strategy in real time because they can't read your response. You are navigating the field with information. They are navigating it blind. Stillness is a weapon. Develop it. Practice it. Deploy it in every high-stakes environment you enter. Section 7. Reduce your digital footprint strategically. Everything you post online is a deposition. It tells people where you stand, what you value, what you're focused on, who you're connected to, and what direction you're moving in. This information has value, and you are broadcasting it for free to anyone who cares to look, including people who do not have your interests at heart. The default behavior in the current environment is maximum visibility. Post constantly, stay active, make noise, stay in the algorithm, and for certain objectives, that is a legitimate strategy. But when your objective is strategic positioning, privacy, or gaining an advantage in competitive situations, maximum visibility works against you. You need a deliberate digital presence strategy that gives you surface-level visibility and operational privacy. People see that you exist, that you're credible, that you're active, and nothing more. Nothing about your current projects, nothing about your timelines, nothing about your financials, your setbacks, your partnerships, or your plans. The gap between what people see and what is actually happening is your operational space. You need that gap to be large. The larger it is, the more room you have to move without scrutiny. Audit your current digital presence from the perspective of an adversary. What can someone piece together about your position from what you've made public? What does your posting pattern reveal about your schedule, your focus, your insecurities? What does your network of public connections tell them about your relationships and dependencies? Whatever you find, close it down. Not all at once, because sudden disappearance is also information. Gradually, systematically, pull back the intelligence you are currently broadcasting for free. Your digital presence should project presence and credibility. It should reveal nothing of operational value. That is the balance. Thomas Shelby understood that being known and being understood are two completely different things. You want to be known, your reputation, your credibility, your presence. You do not want to be understood. Understanding is the first step to being counted. Manage the signal, control what gets out. Make them work for any information they get about you. Section 8. Choose your circles with surgical precision. Your proximity to certain people is public information, and it tells a story about you whether you intend it to or not. Who you're seen with, who you respond to, who gets your time, who gets your endorsement. These associations create a map of your alliances, your loyalties, and your dependencies, and anyone paying attention can read that map. This means your social environment is a strategic variable, not just a personal preference. You need to manage it with the same deliberateness that you bring to any other area of your positioning. The first principle, keep your high-value relationships private. Don't broadcast your best connections. Don't name drop. Don't signal access through your public behavior. The moment someone knows who you have access to, they have information about your leverage. Keep that private, and your leverage is yours alone. The second principle, be selective about who gets close to your actual operations. Not everyone who appears loyal is actually aligned with your interests. Most people are primarily aligned with their own interests, and that is fine. That is human nature, but you need to know that and build your circles accordingly. The inner circle should be small, proven, and silent. Everyone else gets a managed relationship that reveals nothing critical. The third principle, exit associations that have become visible liabilities faster than is comfortable. Comfort is expensive in this context. If a relationship is costing you more in exposure, risk, or association damage than it is giving you in value, end it cleanly, quietly, without drama if possible. Thomas Shelby kept his circles tight and his alliances ambiguous to anyone outside them. He cultivated relationships that were useful and kept them private enough that opponents couldn't map them. When they tried to cut his connections, they couldn't find them all because they didn't know they existed. Your circles are your infrastructure. Manage them with precision. Let nothing into the inner system that doesn't belong there, and never let the shape of that inner system become visible from the outside. Section 9. Use silence as a negotiation weapon. In any negotiation, the first person to fill silence loses. This is not a theory. This is a documented behavioral pattern. When silence enters a conversation, most people experience it as discomfort and immediately move to fill it by offering more, by conceding ground, by weakening their own position just to make the silence stop. If you can sit in silence without discomfort, you have a structural advantage over anyone who can't. The application is straightforward. You make a statement or an offer, and then you go completely quiet. You do not clarify. You do not soften. You do not reassure. You wait. The other person's discomfort with the silence will often do more negotiating work for you than any additional argument could. This requires practice because the instinct to fill silence is strong. Most people feel that silence is awkward, that it's their responsibility to maintain conversational flow, that letting silence stretch too long is rude. You need to unlearn that. Silence in a negotiation is not rudeness. It is pressure. And it is pressure that the other person is applying to themselves on your behalf. Beyond negotiation, silence carries weight in any high-stakes interaction. When you speak less, what you do say carries more gravity. Frequency dilutes signal. Scarcity amplifies it. The person in the room who speaks rarely and precisely is listened to more carefully than the person who fills every moment with words. Develop your tolerance for silence. Practice letting it stretch in conversations where the stakes are lower until you've built the capacity to deploy it in high-stakes moments without flinching. The person who controls the pace of silence controls the pace of the room, and the person who controls the pace of the room controls the outcome of the conversation. Most people are terrified of silence. You should be grateful for it. Every moment they're filling the silence, they're giving you information. They're giving you concessions. They're giving you the advantage. Let them. Section 10. Execute without ceremony. The final pattern to eliminate is the need to make execution dramatic. Most people surround their actions with ceremony. The announcement, the build-up, the reflection, the public processing of the process. They turn execution into a performance, and that performance is a delay, a distraction, and an intelligence leak. The highest level operators strip all of that away. They identify what needs to happen. They do it. They move to the next thing. There is no fanfare. There is no moment of public recognition of how hard it was. There is no pause to process the achievement before turning to what's next. Just action, clean and uninterrupted. This changes your relationship with your own momentum. Momentum is fragile. It gets killed by pauses, by celebrations that go too long, by the need to stop and receive validation for progress before continuing. The people who build the most, who actually compound results over time, tend to operate with a continuous forward pressure that doesn't require external punctuation. Finish the deal, move to the next deal, ship the product, move to the next product, close the chapter, open the next one. The rhythm itself becomes an advantage because you are moving at a pace that most people cannot match simply because most people keep stopping. Eliminate the ceremony from your execution, not because the work isn't worth acknowledging. It is, but because that acknowledgement can happen privately, internally, in a moment, and then it's done. You do not need the world to pause and recognize the step before you take the next one. Thomas Shelby did not celebrate in public. He acknowledged what was done privately, and he was already calculating what came next before the celebration would have even started. That is the velocity of someone who has removed all unnecessary ceremony from their operational process. Strip it down, move clean, execute without theater. Let the accumulation of completed work be the statement. There is no more powerful communication than a track record of relentless, quiet execution. You now have 10 patterns, not philosophy, not theory. Exact behavioral changes you can start making today. Stop announcing, kill your patterns, lock down your information, withdraw strategically, cut the validation dependency, control your reactions, manage your digital presence, build private circles, use silence as a weapon, execute without ceremony. Thomas Shelby didn't build an empire by being the loudest in the room. He built it by being the most unreadable, the most deliberate, the most controlled that is available to you right now. Starting with one pattern, go dark, execute, come back different. The most dangerous person in any room is the one no one can read.